This video will be about Civil Accudraw and basic overview of what Civil Accudraw is. Civil Accudraw is basically the same thing as the Microstation Accudraw, but it's more geared or designed more toward the civil side. There are many benefits in using Civil Accudraw. It extends the drafting power of Microstation by providing civil point location methodologies in all Microstation and civil commands. It will also eliminate the need to create temporary construction geometries just to perform more complex point locations. But in general, Civil Accudraw works similar to Microstation Accudraw. But there are some differences and limitations that you will need to know. First of all, on some of those limitations is Civil Accudraw and Microstation Accudraw do not work together very good. That is highly suggested to either use one or the other, because if you use both of them, it will cause errors. Since what we do is more geared toward the civil aspect of it, I would probably suggest using the Civil Accudraw. But if there are situations where you need to use just the standard Microstation Accudraw, you can use that also. But don't have them both active at the same time. Another thing is switching between Civil Accudraw and Microstation Accudraw while you have values locked in either Accudraw option will also cause errors. So like I said, use one or the other to complete that command that you're doing, whether you're placing a line, placing a cell, or doing whatever. Now there are a bunch of other limitations that Civil Accudraw has, but for the most part they don't really pertain to anything that we do here at MoDOT, so I'm not going to mention any of those. Now some of the differences between Civil Accudraw and Microstation Accudraw is, one is the smart lock that you're able to use with Microstation Accudraw. So I'm going to come up here and activate Microstation Accudraw, and if I come in here and just place a simple line, I'll just use my smart line tool and I'll left click to start it, and I hit the enter key, it'll lock the value in whatever direction that I need to go, whether I need to go in the Y direction or the X direction. So on this one here, I'm locked out my Y direction to just go to where I'm just going in the X direction. Works a little bit differently with Civil Accudraw. And to get to your Civil Accudraw tools, they are down below right here. And to activate it, all you need to do is toggle Civil Accudraw on. And then you have these other options depending on what Civil Accudraw setting that you want to do, whether it's the DX, DY, which is delta X, delta Y, XY absolute, which will read the coordinates in the file. You have a distance direction option. I'm going to skip the next one, which is distance direction unlinked. You have a distance. You have a station, an offset, delta station offset, which we'll go ahead and skip over that one. Direction, and then offset. So you have many different options depending on what situation that you need for using Civil Accudraw. Now, using Civil Accudraw, and I come in here and I left click to start that line, you see that you have your compass out there, and it kind of looks similar to what Microstation Accudraw does. But if I hit the enter key does not lock the value going just in the X or the Y direction. The enter key actually locks the value of whatever field that it's currently in. So like whenever I did that, the DX was set to 368.7623. So it locks that value in. So that's the difference between Microstation Accudraw and Civil Accudraw with the enter key. The smart lock is not supported in the Civil Accudraw. There's other functionalities in there that allows you basically to do the same thing inside there. So that's one difference. I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. I'll hit F4 to clear out my tool. Another difference is the space bar. Using Microstation Accudraw, and I'm going to toggle off Civil Accudraw for the time being. In Microstation Accudraw, if I hit the space bar, you can toggle it from your XY mode to your polar mode. It's always been that way. But if I use Civil Accudraw and whatever option that I have, and I come up here and I'll just start a line, and I hit the space bar, it actually brings me down to a list of options that I can toggle to. Whether I want to use this option or whatever. That's what the spacebar does in Civil Accudraw. It's a little bit different than what it does in the standard Microstation Accudraw. So that's another difference that's out there. I hit F4 to clear out my tool. Right click to reset it. Another difference is the O shortcut. The O shortcut in the Microstation Accudraw is to set the origin point of wherever you want that origin point to be, but it reads it at the current position of where your cursor is at. So if I came up here and I'm using Microstation Accudraw, and I'll come up here and use my Place Smart Line tool, and now if I come up here and I use my middle mouse button and I'm going to snap to this endpoint right here to set my origin, and I hit the letter O, that is going to be my origin point to go from. So if I type in some values off of that, let's say 50 feet, enter, 50 feet, enter, you see that it jumped 50 feet to the left and 50 feet up. Now, it works a little bit differently with the Civil Accudraw. So if I come up down below here and I'll toggle on Civil Accudraw, with the Civil Accudraw, and one option that the O can be used is the station and offset. There's a few other ones that can be used also, but this is a good example for this one. With the station and offset, you have to define what your origin point or your origin element should be. I want to use this line as my reference element. I would hit the letter O on the keyboard, and it'll say select reference element or reset to return to command. So for this option, I can come out here and select a reference element to go off of to use that station and offset option in Civil Accudraw. So if I click on it, you'll see now that I move my mouse around, you'll see the stationing go up or down depending on which way that I go, and also my offset. And then I use the command accordingly whether I want to place that line or place a point at that station and offset. Another example where that could be used is the distance direction. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to use this option. I'll just use my Place Line tool. And if I hit the letter O, on this one it says select a reference point. So now you come out here and you define what point that you want to use as a reference. Let's say I want to start it at this point right here. So I'll snap to it. And now it's going to use that as my reference point or origin point. And now I define what direction and distance that I want to go. So that's a little bit of the differences between the O key versus the Microstation Accudraw or the Civil Accudraw. Now what I'll go over are some basic tips on using Civil Accudraw with any of your Microstation tools or your Civil Geometry tools in your Civil Geometry tools task over to the side here. What I'm going to do is set my Civil Accudraw to the dx dy, which is delta x delta y, and I'll just use my Place Smart Line tool to demonstrate some of the tips on how it works. There's other videos out there that demonstrates each one of these tools and how they work, but I'm going to give you some tips on how some of these work and some options that you will need to know whenever you use some of those options down below there in your Civil Accudraw tools. First one, let's say I come out here and I'm just going to dynamically start a line. Left click to start it. You see the dx and the dy on the end of your cursor. If you hit the tab key, you can tab down to that other field, just like what I'm doing now. So if I want to type in a value just in the x or just the y, I can tab down to those fields. So whatever field that's highlighted and I type something in, it's going to go into that field, of course. Another thing that you will need to know is the enter key. The enter key locks the value that is currently in that field. So right now, let's say I want to draw that line in the x direction 450 feet. Since it's highlighted in my x field, I can type in 450. And then if I hit the enter key, it locks that value in. And I can do the same thing for the y if I need to do that. Or if that value is what I want, I can hit the enter key for my y, and it locks those values in. So that's what the enter key does on any of your Civil Accudraw options down below there. The enter key locks the current value that's inside that box or whatever that you type in. Now if you want to clear out that locked value, let's say you typed in some stuff and I want to unlock that value, if I hit the end key, END, end, and then I move my cursor out, you'll see that it's going to unlock it. And I can do the same thing for my Y. Let's say I don't want that locked value. I'll hit the end key on that one also. And you'll see that that field is unlocked now. So the enter key locks the value, the end key unlocks the value. Another shortcut that you can do is, let's say you had multiple fields locked, like what I have right now, and I want to unlock both those fields at one time. What I can also do is hit the shift end at the same time, and it will actually unlock both those values. So that's what the shift end key does if you do those at the same time. Another one is the left and the right arrow keys. Right now my option down below here is set to dx dy, which is delta x delta y. But if I hit my right arrow, you'll notice that it will toggle through those other options. So that's what the left and the right mouse button does. It allows you to go to another option in your Civil Accudraw tools without you having to go back down below there. So that's a personal option if you want to use that or not. Another one is the O key, which we demonstrated earlier, but we'll go over it again. Let's say we're coming in here and we're using our station and offset, and what we have to do is base it off an element to use my stationing and offset. See, I want to base it off of this element right here. Well, if I hit the letter O, it'll either give me the option that says select a reference element, for at least the station and offset option, or with other Civil Accudraw options, it'll give you the prompt that says select a reference point. So this one here, you have to select a reference element for the station and offset option in your Civil Accudraw tools. Select it, and now that you move your mouse left and right, you'll see that you can input stationing, like 2 plus 50, enter to lock it in, and then if I want to go 120 feet off of it, depending on where I have my cursor at, that is also important. 120, and then I can left click to place it at that point and then go to the next point that I need to go to, whether I need to use this option or if I want to toggle to a different one. I can hit my right or left arrow to get to a different Civil Accudraw option. So that's what the O does. It allows you to define a reference point or a reference element to go off of. And the last tip that I'm going to show you is inputting the direction or the bearing inside some of these fields. Like for the distance direction, you have the option that says distance, and of course you got a direction. And then same thing for your direction option, where you can input those fields. So for this example here, just to show you what needs to be put into the direction field, I'm just going to dynamically start it at this point. I'll give it a direction of 450 feet. Lock that value in by hitting the enter key. But now in my direction, you have to define what direction that you want to go. And for this example, we're going to use north 40 degrees. Now to break it out between degrees, minutes, and seconds, there's actually quite a few ways you can do it. And I'll show you each one of the options, but probably the easiest one to do is to put a colon in between there. So on this one here, I'll do 40 colon, let's say it's 25 minutes colon and 30 seconds east. So now if I hit the enter key, it's going to lock that value in. So that's probably the easiest way to do it, is 40 colon 25 colon and then whatever seconds that you need, and then your direction that you're going to. A couple other options that you can also do is, let's say we come in here, I'll do north 40 colon 25 minutes. Basically you can put that minute symbol up above there, which is kind of the basically the same thing as a foot symbol, and then whatever seconds that you have. That's another valid option that you can do. Another one that you can do is you can do 40 with the caret symbol, which defines it as degrees, 25 minutes, 30 seconds east. That's another valid option. And if I hit the enter key, it'll lock that value in. A few different ways you can do it, but probably the easiest, like I said, is to come in here and do whatever direction that you're going, whether it's north or south. Put in your degrees, colon, whatever your minutes are, colon, and then whatever your seconds are, and then whatever direction that you're going, just like what I have there, and then hit the enter key, and it's going to go in that direction. So whenever you're putting in a bearing into the field, that's what you would need to do. And you can also come in here, and let's say I just need to go 45 degrees, enter, you can do that. Or if I come in here and let's say I need to go 120 degrees from that origin point, you can do that also. A few different ways you can do it, but like I said, putting in the colons in between degrees, minutes, and seconds, that's the easiest to do.